Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining the stream. I'm here with Corey DeAngelis today. We've done a bunch of these, but it's been, I was looking at this, Corey, it's been 2.5 years since we did this. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's been, maybe...
We were doing them every week, too. We were doing them every week with a third guest, with a guest besides ourselves, and it was a lot of fun. I still remember we were waiting on one of those big-name guests. I won't name him on the show today, but we sat there for an hour or two waiting for him, and unfortunately, it didn't work out because of some complications. But that was fun times.
That was, a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing that. And we've talked about starting this up again a couple of times. Maybe we'll look into that further. I've got some ideas for some guests that I think would be interesting. And it's been long enough. I mean, we could circle back on a few, I'm sure, too, that have some interesting things to say, because it's been long enough that some news has changed and their interests have deepened in some different areas that I think listeners would enjoy hearing about. So anyway, we're here today to talk about your new book. Put it up here on the screen, The Parent Revolution. Boom. This is going to be released May 15th. When this airs, that's today for everyone watching. So exciting stuff. Tell us, give us an overview, Corey, about the book. And then I've got some questions for you about it.
Yeah, real quick, those fists, they refer to the radicals ruining our schools. It's basically calling the radicals ruining our schools communist in the government school system. So the Parent Revolution is rescuing your kids from these radicals ruining your schools. The target audience is families all across the country, conservatives in particular, who are pissed off about what they've seen in the government-run school system that has been infiltrated by the left for decades. And I really dedicated the book to Randi Weingarten and the teachers unions for overplaying their hand and inadvertently doing more to advance the concepts of school choice and homeschooling than anyone could have ever imagined. So thank you, Randi. Becky, I actually just got an email today that my shipment to the NEA, the largest teachers union in the country, to Becky Pringle, thanking her for all she's done to accidentally support school choice, it arrived. So we'll see if they respond to it. Hopefully they don't burn it. But if they do burn it, they should buy a lot of them to do so and make a big pile so that the sales skyrocket because of it. There was actually a teachers union board member, an executive board member in Wisconsin, who replied to one of my initial tweets about the book and said, "Great day for a book burning party." The same yahoos that are railing against conservatives saying that we want to ban books because we want age-appropriate content in the classroom, they're the ones that actually want or are calling to burn books that they haven't even read, that they know they're going to disagree with. And they're total hypocrites. It's Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. They follow it to the T. They accuse others of what they are doing themselves. So that it's such a threat to the status quo that they haven't even read it yet and they're already freaking out, losing their minds over it. It's probably a good reason that you should read the book and equip yourself with how to fight back against the tyranny of the status quo. And it also has a lot of if you look at the back of the book, it's been endorsed by a bunch of people, including Ted Cruz at the top, senator from Texas. He says in this very last statement, he says some other things too, but the very last sentence here is, "Ruin Randi Weingarten's day by reading this book." And I did dedicate it to her and the unions. I sent her a copy. A lot of people got on me for my handwriting. They said, "Your handwriting is horrible, Corey. Who did that? A 10-year-old?" And my response was, "Look, you can't blame me. I went to government schools all through K through 12 education." And I can't really say, "Oh, it's because I'm a doctor," either, because the truth is, Matthew, I'm not a real doctor. I'm more like a Jill Biden doctor. I have a PhD in education policy.
Hey, maybe
so
in handwriting,
I can't blame the handwriting on that.
Maybe it's the same. Like, okay, you're not a real doctor. You're a Jill Biden doctor. But maybe even Jill Biden doctors can use the excuse. I don't know.
Well, and some people replied when I said that on Twitter that a PhD is superior to an education doctorate. And hey, I'll
Oh,
take it.
wow.
I do have a PhD and not an education D like Joe Biden. But I mean, this is all just fun and games. But the book also, it talks about how the teachers unions overplayed their hand. They awakened a sleeping giant, which happens to be parents who want more of a say in their kids' education. We saw this unfold in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin beating Terry
Mhm.
McAuliffe. Glenn Youngkin showed a blueprint for success for Republicans in particular to win on the issue of education freedom, because Terry McAuliffe on the last debate stage said, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. Well, the teachers unions closed the schools despite the lies by Randi Weingarten. She went before Congress saying that they were actually fighting to reopen the schools since April 2020. That is not true. And if it was
No.
true, why the hell weren't they open? The private schools were open, the private businesses were open. You must be extremely incompetent if you were really trying to reopen that you could not figure it out in some places till 2022. That's right. Chicago was striking in 2022 as well. The same union that deleted a tweet saying that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. They threw every
Mhm.
buzzword at the wall to see what would stick. And that one showed parents that they were pathetic, fear mongering losers that run the union. They're control freaks that don't give a damn about your kids. And then two, the best part about it is their plan backfired. Although the unions got a lot of money, they extorted ransom payments from taxpayers by holding children's education hostage. Families got to see what the heck was going on in the classroom, and parents who thought their kids were in good schools, politically motivated, politically advantaged, politically powerful groups of parents started to see something was awry, that there's a rot in the government school system that's not captured by a test score, that's something to do with the values in the school, the curriculum of the school. And parents started to see they didn't want to send their kids to institutions run by the government where they feel like they're being indoctrinated or even brainwashed
Yeah.
that is in a way that's not aligned with their family's values. So that
Well,
got
and
parents
even
to push back.
and there were two things real quick on what you mentioned there. So Terry McAuliffe invited who to the stage?
Randi Weingarten, the school closer, was his campaign closer. And on CNN the next day, a mom in Virginia actually went on TV and said that that was the quote, nail in the coffin moment for her. She was like, look, Virginia, a lot of people don't know this, but Virginia was closed just about as long as California was closed. So Virginia was not a good state when it came to reopening like Florida or Texas. And so Virginia was a horrible place. And they just had a ton of school board battles with the Loudoun County School Board, just crapping on parents.
Mhm.
The National School Boards Association sent a letter to the Biden administration implying that parents should be investigated for domestic terrorists. And guess what they cited? They cited school board meetings in Virginia. They even cited a dad, and I cover this in a book. And the dad was upset. He ended up getting arrested at the school board meeting, and there was a viral picture of him with his hands behind his back.
Yep.
Youngkin, the parents' party governor, ended up pardoning him later. And no one thought to ask, why the heck was this parent so upset at the school board meeting? They just used his image to try to say we should weaponize the federal government. And they did. The FBI even created a threat tag specifically for parents showing up at school board meetings because they were not happy with the curriculum. They didn't want their kids brainwashed. They were participating in democratic society, trying to hold school boards accountable. But because they weren't viewed as customers, because they were viewed as the enemy, the school boards tried to bully and silence these parents into
Mhm.
submission. Thankfully, as I outlined in the Parent Revolution, this only emboldened parents to push back even harder. They basically became a new, more powerful, special, or even a generalized interest group. The parents' party, the kids' union, the parents became more powerful than the teachers' union because
Yeah.
one, parents care about their kids more than anybody else, and they outnumber the employees in the system. So since then, 26 states have left the National School Boards Association. They've basically imploded. And that shows that if parents band together and lock arms, they can be a political juggernaut, a political force to be reckoned with. And in Virginia, this dad was upset. And Luke Rosiak at the Daily Wire was the first person to cover this right before the election. The dad was upset because his daughter was sexually assaulted at the school, and he was upset about the school board considering a policy to allow males biologically into female restrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, Luke covered the story. And it turned out that the grand jury indicated later on that the school officials were trying to cover it up, just like they do with everything else. They always just try to avoid a PR disaster. They want to look good in the public eye. And that's good. At least they're trying to look good, but not by sweeping things under the rug. They should do a better job. And if they weren't a monopoly, if people could vote with their feet, they would have a stronger incentive to do the right thing and to listen to parents as opposed to labeling them as evil people. And so the parent revolution talks about a lot of obviously the negative things that happened, but it's really optimistic in its tone in that, yes, they got the best of us in the short run, but we're winning right now. And we're winning so much, Matthew, I'm almost getting tired of winning. Not really. We haven't gotten the blue states yet, but where you're sitting right now in Arizona, we went all in on school choice. Everybody's eligible. No picking winners and losers anymore. I wish Milton Friedman were alive today. One, so he could join us on the podcast, but two, so he could finally see his ideas of universal education freedom coming to fruition right before our very eyes. We now have Arizona's government website broke down the day that they allowed everybody to apply. Now you have about 80,000 students benefiting from education savings accounts, full-throated school choice, and that crashed the government website because it's so popular, it's so powerful, the demand is so high, and 11 states now, red states, have gone all in with universal school choice, and we're not done yet.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So 11 schools have universal school choice. Is it 23 that have some form of ESA?
And ESA is I don't know how many states have ESAs, but private school choice, whether vouchers, scholarships, or ESA, that is at least 30 states now, plus 30. The District of Columbia, because Congress, when Republicans were in control, were able to pass a voucher program within a federal district, which was the District of Columbia. And now, to this day, it's a popular program. Thousands of students are on wait lists trying to get a scholarship in the District of Columbia. A lot of Democrats benefit from school choice programs. If you look at I don't know the political persuasions of people using vouchers in DC, but the latest data that I've seen is that 95% of the students are Black or Hispanic. Yep. And the average household income in DC, a high cost of living area, was only about $25,000 to $30,000 for the entire household income for a year for students using that program. And you still have thousands of people on the wait list banging down the door to try to get a better opportunity, despite the DC government schools spending 3 times as much as what they get in the voucher. The DC government schools spend over $30,000 a year. The voucher is about $10,000 or $12,000 per student. And so that they're banging down the door to get a better opportunity for a third of the cost tells you it's not all about money. It's more about incentives and caring about what families need and just being the right match for that student. I mean, you could be a good school for a majority of kids, but you might not be the best fit for your child.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know what parents, when they're given an option, what do? And we see this across the country. It happens every single time. And it's not limited to one demographic. It's not limited to one region, unless it's specified in the statute, which happens sometimes in some states. But largely school choice is taken advantage of widely. So I'm sure you talk about that in your book. What are some examples that you use in the book of people taking up school choice and becoming part of the parent revolution?
Yeah, I talk about a lot of the numbers of enrollment from these initial expansions. So, like in Arizona, like I said, there's like 80,000 kids using the private school choice initiative. In Utah, they had a 5,000 students program that they passed in 2023. It was universal, but only 5,000 scholarships were available. Well, guess what? They opened that up, and they had to go back to the well this year to pass a bill to double that to 10,000 to meet demand. The latest numbers that I've seen, and look, they passed this in 2023. It's 2024 right now. It's not been a long time. They just opened up the scholarships. And I believe I saw like 30,000 kids. Like they funded it for 10,000, but they still have like 20, 30,000 more kids on the wait list.
Wow.
And this in Florida, before they went universal, they had a big program already, more than 100,000 students using the program. Well, now the latest numbers that I've seen is over 400,000 students getting scholarships in Florida to experience private school choice. So this is just,
It's amazing.
the support is there. I also go into examples of hypocrisy by the unions during COVID. I talked about the tweet they deleted calling reopening schools racist. I talked about how the Chicago Teachers Union board member was vacationing in Puerto Rico while railing against going back to work because somehow it was safe to fly halfway across the world to vacation, but it wasn't safe to just go back to work. I mean,
Right,
obviously
you can't go back
they
to
just
work.
wanted to go. They even started posting, the Los Angeles Teachers Union, it was found out that they posted in their private group, hey, if you want to go on vacation, fine. Just don't post about it because it doesn't look bad for us saying that it's not safe to go back to work, but then we're vacationing. So they knew they were being total hypocrites. They just didn't want to go back to work. And I blame the system itself because, look, anybody would have, I mean, not anybody, good people would have said, this is stupid. And a lot of good teachers did want to go back to work, but their union bosses wanted to hold the kids' education hostage to get more money. And they did. They got about $190 billion in so-called COVID relief since March of 2020. But I also want to talk about how in the book, I mentioned it that school choice is an equalizer. It should not be a partisan issue. And that, look, you can make left and right leaning arguments for school choice. And if you ask constituents, they support it from all backgrounds, Republican, Democrat, independent, regardless of race, income level, education level, no matter how you slice the data, school choice is by every demographic. And so it shouldn't be a partisan issue. The problem is with elected officials, one party, the Democratic Party in particular, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the teachers union. We've mentioned Randy, who I've dedicated the book to. 99.97% of her campaign contributions from the American Federation of Teachers went to Democrats in 2022. It's basically a money laundering scheme. It ought to be illegal. It's wash, rinse, repeat. The money goes from the Democrats to the government school system. Then it funnels back through the teachers union to the Democrat campaign coffers, and it goes back and forth. It's wash, rinse, repeat, a nonstop cycle. And that is why Democrat elected officials have such a hard time voting against school choice. They're controlled by the teachers unions.
Yeah.
And thankfully, some Democrats are wavering on the issue. In Louisiana, they just passed universal school choice a couple weeks ago, 72-32 in the House with a super majority. And 20% of their House Democrats voted for it. Now, look, that's not as much as I'd like, but it's a lot better than 0%. Hey, I'll take any bipartisan support that we can get. In Florida, 11% of the Florida House Democrats voted for universal school choice last year. In North Carolina and Georgia, they lost sitting legislators. Democrats switched to the GOP on the issue of school choice. Misha Maynor in Georgia and Tricia Cotham in North Carolina. And so if the Democrats are losing not just voters, but sitting legislators on the issue, maybe they should reconsider their position.
Yeah.
And if enough Democrats banded together and locked arms, the unions wouldn't be able to control them anymore. Yes, the unions might be able to pick off one or two defectors in primaries, but if everybody said, to hell with this, we're going to support kids, we're going to support parents, we're going to support our real constituents, actual families from all backgrounds, the unions would be powerless. They wouldn't be able to take them all out. And so the unions would have to maneuver and switch to prioritizing different things. Maybe they want a more limited form of school choice. Maybe they would fight against universal, but they wouldn't fight against low-income scholarships. So, or maybe they would start prioritizing the teachers actually and say, hey, maybe let's just fight for more money for the classroom, or maybe we'll fight for other benefits for teachers, like being able to discipline students. And hey, how about merit pay? I mean, the teachers unions will never do that because they just protect the lowest common denominator. But maybe with school choice and with political pressure to do the right thing, the unions could actually figure some things out. That might be in the long run. But the reason I bring this up is I wanted to point out that although it should be a bipartisan issue among elected officials, since the constituents want it, we've made a mistake in the school choice movement over the past few decades. As you know, we only had kind of incremental victories over the past 3 decades. It was, hey, maybe we'll pass a small program here for special needs students, which I think is still a step in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Or maybe just for low-income kids, which again, that's still a win. I'll take any W we can get, or else we're stuck with the L. But now, out of nowhere, it seems, after COVID, when parents woke up with the parent revolution, we have 11 states that went universal. Before 2021, there were 0 states that went universal. So what changed?
What changed?
And the thing that I point out in the book is that we made the mistake of pretending that the policy was bipartisan among elected officials. Yeah. And we were well-meaning in that we argued that this was an equalizer. We tried to make the Democrats feel bad by saying this is going to help the low-income kids. There is systemic racism in the public school system. This will provide more families with opportunities. Rich people already have school choice. We used all these arguments, and I think they're good arguments. The thing is, they didn't translate to political victories among Democrats. And so what that also did at the same time is arguably it told Republicans, this isn't a Republican thing. This isn't a conservative litmus. So I don't really feel pressured to vote for it either. And so what we ended up with was marginal victories, but we didn't have full-throated school choice. It didn't become such a politically charged litmus test issue for Republicans. So we didn't get to where we are today. And so almost counterintuitively, trying to have a bigger tent led us to fewer victories by turning off Republicans while not actually translating to additional votes among Democrats. And I think Jay Green did a report on this with James Paul, I believe, both affiliated in some way with the Educational Freedom Institute. And they did a report looking at the legislative victories for school choice over the past few decades. And they found that almost all the time, I think it was like 97% of the time, even if the Democrat had voted for the bill, the Democrat vote wasn't consequential. They didn't need the Democrat. If those same Democrats didn't vote, they had enough Republican votes to pass the bill. And so their argument was, and this is kind of what was argued in the book as well, was that we should lean into the culture war. We should lean into the idea that school choice can help families attain schools that align with their values, especially when the school boards, when you try to show up there and fix it that way, well, one, the unions have more resources to win elections in the long run at the school board level. But 2, even if you win the school board, you might not change how the curriculum is being taught. And then 3, if you don't win those victories, then it's kind of a fruitless endeavor. I totally lost my train of thought, Matthew. But
no, but did you?
The point is that if the reason we've had so many victories, and we should lean into the school choice issue as a solution. The last thing I wanted to say is that, well, when you show up at the school board meetings, they'll just label you as a domestic terrorist or an evil person. And so that didn't really work out all that well. It was a fruitless endeavor. And so the better solution that I propose in the book, and that has been proposed in countless legislatures across the country post-COVID, is that, one, if your school's not open, you should be able to take a voucher to go to a school that is open. And then more importantly, if you vehemently disagree with the values in that school, and you shouldn't have to explain your reasoning for this, but If you're not happy about what the school is doing for whatever reason, particularly if it's not aligned with your values, you should be able to take your kids' education dollars to a school that is aligned with your values, and that'll also lead to competitive pressures for the public schools to focus more on the basics as opposed to politically divisive concepts.
Yep.
And then also with the CRT bans and other bans from the top down, they may work in some cases, but we've seen a lot of evidence, video evidence from red states where they've already banned CRT, where they're saying out loud that they'll teach it anyway. This is undercover journalism by Accuracy in Media. They'll teach it anyway. They'll call it social emotional learning. They'll call it mental health. They'll just move the goalposts, and it's a never-ending game of whack-a-mole to try to fix a one-size-fits-all system from the top down. The CRT battles of today are and the gender battles will be something else in the future, because
that's right.
There is no way to force everyone into one system where they're all going to agree about how they want to raise their kids. The better solution is from the bottom up. Allow families to choose, and that is the proposal in the book. And the point is that the way that we've won over the past couple of years is by making conservatives hold each other accountable for voting for school choice. And in particular, it's been the Republican primary voters making school choice a GOP litmus test issue. That's why these 11 victories have been in red states. And something I cover in the book
Texas,
in
with
Texas,
the legislators,
where I live, you had a bunch of guys vote with all the Democrats in the House after it already passed the Senate by a vote of 18-13, easily passed the Senate. Republicans basically all voted for it except for one in the Senate. That happens sometimes. You get a defector. But in the House, you had a bunch of them lock arms with Democrats, 21 of them. And they all got challenged basically in the primaries. 5 of them said, hell no, I see the writing on the wall. I'm not gonna run for re-election. So some of them just retired. They knew that they were going to lose. And then with my organization, AFC Victory Fund, our school choice super PAC, we targeted 13 of those guys who were remaining who voted against school choice. And 10 of the 13 anti-school choice incumbents that we targeted in the House for voting against their own party platform issue of education freedom, 10 of the 13 that we targeted either lost their seats outright on Super Tuesday, or they were forced into a runoff. And most of them that were forced into runoffs in second place. And if you look at the data in Texas over the past 30 years, the people who lose their runoffs and they lose they're forced into runoffs, they basically lose all the time. And so it doesn't look good for them for the May 28th election. A Super Tuesday election went really well for conservatives and for voters who support education freedom. And it really puts to bed the myth that rural voters don't want school choice. These were a lot of rural guys. They got taken out by large margins. You think about Glenn Rogers. He lost by 27 points. He was the most vocal Republican against school choice. He was writing op-eds up until Election Day, reiterating his opposition to his own party platform. I was saying right before Election Day, that's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him. It didn't work out for him. He lost by 27 points as an incumbent. Incumbents basically win 95% of the time.
Right.
And so he stepped in it. You had Hugh Shine, an incumbent who I believe had been in the legislature over a decade. He had name recognition. He lost by in a 4-way primary with less than 50% of the vote. Hillary Hickland came out victorious. I believe he outspent her by large margins, and she still won. And the main dividing line in a lot of these races, I believe she won by double digits too. I think it was like over 10 points. And the main dividing line in all these races was school choice. And so it just goes to show you school choice is not just the right thing to do. It's a political winner. And the GOP will become the parents' party, whether the politicians like it or not. And that's because the voters are the ones holding them accountable for doing the right thing to allow their kids to leave these socialist institutions we call government schools. Some of them are fine. Some of them do a good job. As I've said before, if you like your public school, you can keep your public school.
Mm-hmm.
But for real this time, unlike with your doctor, the public schools actually do improve. And this has happened in Arizona. It's happened in Florida. The public schools improve in response to competition because school choice is a rising tide that lifts all boats. Competition works in K-12 education just like it does in any other industry. We have the evidence and the receipts to prove it. 26 of 29 studies have found positive effects of school choice competition on the outcomes in the public schools. But one thing a term that I coined in the book is something I call bipartisanship through hyperpartisanship. Now, this may sound counterintuitive at first. How can something being extremely polarized in the short run lead to widespread bipartisan support in the long run? Well, it reminds me of a quote by the great Milton Friedman when he said something along the lines of, the way that you change things is not by getting the right people into office. Obviously, that can help, especially if they're voting for the thing that you like. But the way that you truly change things in the long run is by creating a climate of opinion where it becomes politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing. And I think we're reaching that point. School choice is reaching a point of escape velocity when it comes to a bipartisan breakthrough on school choice. We're seeing some defections, like I mentioned earlier, the Louisiana Democrats voting for it, some Democrats in Florida voting for it.
In Nebraska?
Nebraska, Justin Wayne going hard, going viral on social media over the years, fighting for school choice. He was a consequential vote. They needed his vote to pass the bill this year and last year. And then you also had in Georgia, the bill passed with the 82 votes it needed. They had some Democrats vote for it too. I believe might have actually been one Democrat. I don't remember the count, but they needed some Democrats. And Democrats
I remember seeing the video of her, a female legislator in Georgia.
Georgia, Missouri, they needed a Democrat vote, which that's crazy, right? That's super majority state. They needed a Democrat.
Right.
But and then in Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, look, we can argue about him caving to the unions in the end, but right before the election in 2022, he changed his education platform to include Lifeline scholarships, a form of private school choice, a bill that was run by a Republican, voted for by Republicans. I think there was only one Democrat that voted for it that year in the entire House in Pennsylvania. And he included in his platform right before the election, right after he started getting hammered for being a hypocrite on school choice because he went to private school, sent his kids to private school. Doug Mastriano, the Republican, was saying, hey, I support school choice. You're a hypocrite because you don't, and you went to private school. And right after that, the education platform changed. Josh Shapiro was able to say, hey, I actually do support school choice. I'm not a hypocrite. He was able to take away that argument from Doug Mastriano by doing that. And Josh Shapiro actually went on Fox News, a conservative outlet, last year in 2023, reiterating his support for school choice. And look, we can fight all day about why he did it. But my point is that it doesn't matter why he did it. Whether it was a true change of heart, I would hope that's the case. But if it wasn't, even if it was just him reading the tea leaves, that is good news for parents in the end, that a high-profile Democrat, and he's not the only one, felt compelled to signal support for school choice publicly. They're trying to outmaneuver themselves, Republicans and Democrats, on the issue of school choice in some cases. That's much better than the Democrats saying, no, school choice is racist. Families can't choose to pick their schools because they can't figure it out. They're not smart like us. And that's what has been claimed in the past.
They say it all the time.
Paternalistic argument. And it's the worst argument against school choice. It's kind of smart that they're moving away from that. And you even have people like Joe Biden tweeting out things like a zip code shouldn't determine your education. That is the school choice argument we've been making forever. Your school is determined by your zip code because you are assigned to the school based on your address. Families have actually gone to jail for lying about their address to get into better so-called public schools. But my point is that the political winds are already shifting in our favor on the issue of school choice. And it's not because we were making lefty arguments for school choice. It was because they saw what happened in Virginia with Terry McAuliffe. They saw what's happening with Republicans picking up the football and becoming the popular parents' party, well, the Democrats are going to get left in the dust if they don't come along. And in fact, there was a couple of polls now by the Democrats for Education Reform group, and they've put out press releases showing that in their polling, they found that Democrats are losing on the issue, or they've lost their advantage at least, which they used to have a double-digit advantage on education. They're now losing their advantage on education. They attribute that to school choice.
Yeah.
And the Democrats for Education Reform has reiterated a couple times now that if the Democrats are smart, they should actually embrace some form of school choice. Maybe it's just charter schools. Maybe it's a limited form of private school choice, like we saw with Josh Shapiro. The Lifeline scholarships were not universal, but they were for kids in failing schools, which I think applied to about a quarter of the kids in the state. That's better than nothing. I'll take any embrace by the Democrat Party. It's better than them totally opposing school choice. I'm going to give you credit whenever you take an incremental step in the right direction.
For sure. But even, I think they also see, I think these lawmakers and union leaders, I think they're also seeing a growing proportion of minorities who are being emboldened, to talk about your book again, The Parent Revolution. I think these moms and dads, regardless of political affiliation, want choice. It doesn't matter.
School choice, education freedom, having a say in your kids' education becomes a political priority for voters, especially once the program's already passed. Yes, before it's passed, it's kind of hard to make that a single issue vote for a family because they have nothing to lose yet, right? They have their kids' education future to lose, but they haven't actually benefited from private education yet. They don't have that scholarship that can be ripped out of their hands. But we saw this happen, and you're right, Matthew, and I cover this in a chapter on Florida in The Parent Revolution, with DeSantis basically expanding GOP majorities since they've expanded school choice and winning by 20 points in 2022 against Charlie Crist, the guy who picked the teachers union boss who supported school closures as his his running mate for lieutenant governor in Florida. What a dumb idea. It didn't work out for him.
Horrible move.
But in 2018, you wouldn't know it because DeSantis is winning so much in Florida. In 2018, he barely won by a fraction. I think it was like 0.3 points to a Democrat who was an African-American guy, Andrew Gillum, who opposed the scholarship program that was already benefiting over 100,000 families. And that led to a headline in the Wall Street Journal right after the election by Bill Maddox at James Madison Institute. The headline was, "The school choice moms tipped the governor's race for DeSantis." And what he did was he looked at exit polling, I believe it was from CNN, finding that DeSantis overperformed with Black moms in particular, who were overrepresented in the students already benefiting from the scholarship. So like I said, over 100,000 kids using the scholarships already. And they were disproportionately non-white and low-income families. I believe at the time,
unprecedented, right?
Average income was like $25,000 a year. And so this, it's unprecedented support. And basically what happened was those moms knew that even if they disagreed with DeSantis on some things that didn't really affect them personally, they saw that this opportunity in the form of a scholarship was getting their kids away from the negative associations in the government schools, was getting them to a safer environment. Maybe their kid was being bullied every day in the public school. They knew that there was a real threat if the Democrat were to win, that they wouldn't be able to have a better future for their children. They wanted a better opportunity than they had for themselves. They wanted that for their kids. And so that led to, the whole country would have been different, right? Because Florida was a leader on reopening schools and and fighting against COVID tyranny. If Gillum would have won, Florida would have been locked down. Florida housing prices wouldn't be as high as they are today because New Yorkers have left and fled the idiotic policies by the tyrants in places like California and New York. They wouldn't have fled to Florida as much. And so that Florida was able, because we live in these laboratories of democracy, and because DeSantis won, it was a beacon of hope for the rest of the country. We're able to point to it and say, look, they opened, and this didn't lead to all of the fear mongering that was purported by the lockdown lunatics, the COVID maniacs, the branch COVIDians. And so the point of the book also is to say, we can win. We should be optimistic. Look at how we've won in these other places. We really have the unions to thank for their own idiotic decisions. And it will rely on one party, I would say the Republican Party, picking up the football and then incentivizing the Democrats to come along if the Democrats continue to bleed votes on the issue. But I also don't only solely focus on school choice. That's what I'm most interested in. I think that's the best solution. But maybe you're a parent in California that might say, how the hell is this going to help me here? Well, one, the 50 states are laboratories of democracy. The more that we have states passing this, the more likely it is to come to California.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also other ways to do it. You can put it on the ballot to circumvent the union-dominated legislature. And then you could also pass the federal Educational Choice for Children Act that's funded by a tax credit, not government money. You get some of your money back that can be used for educational expenses. So that could supercharge school choice, the Educational Choice for Children Act in red states, but also it could bring school choice to blue states as well. That bill already has 150 co-sponsors, all Republicans, in the U.S. House of Representatives, including the Speaker, Mike Johnson. I think everybody should be on board. There should be more than 150, but that is a good start for a federal bill.
Yeah.
Federal bills usually take a while to get this kind of support. So hopefully Republicans can take over the Senate and Trump can take over the White House. It would make it much more likely that this would be able to pass in the future. But also, there's some no-brainer solutions that you can fight for too. Having transparency with the public school curriculum.
Right.
If Democrats want to fight against that very low bar of accountability, that's going to look really bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
And in California, I'm actually on the Liberty Justice Center's board. We're representing a family or a school district, Chino Unified, who tried to pass a policy that was simple. Don't keep secrets from parents. If a child chooses to change their gender at school, which I think it's a lot of the time influenced by the adults in the system,
sure,
not the kids themselves. The kids get confused by all the crap they try to shove down their throats through the public school curriculum, when instead they should be just focusing on the basics as opposed to their political pet projects with young children. But the thing is, the policy that they passed was to, if there's any whiff of that happening at the school, if the child is confused about their gender, you tell the parents. Don't keep secrets from parents. The state rained down hell. The Attorney General, A.G. Bonta, actually sued the school district because they didn't want to keep secrets about child's sexuality from their own families. And so it's just insane, the authoritarian overreach we've seen in states like California. Thankfully, we have Liberty Justice Center fighting for families and Chino Unified for pushing back. But that's just some of the examples. Also, another no-brainer that Democrats should support, but they don't, only for this one thing, because it's the teachers' unions that don't want it, is to align the school board elections with the general election.
Yep.
Because that will increase voter turnout, make it on-cycle election. What they currently do is make it at a random time, so that only the people that show up, it's a very 5% of the the voters actually show up. And so it's typically only the employees, the special interests who control the system that show up to vote. And they get to cherry pick their socialist school board members, and they usually get to pass millions or billions of dollars in bonds to extract more resources from the taxpayer. And they do that because they want it at those times to reduce turnout on purpose, so that their special interests can control the outcomes of those elections. So it'll be fun to propose aligning that with the general to increase turnout. You can use the left's own language against them and say, look, we need more participation in democracy. We don't want to voter suppression.
Right.
And then they'll have to try to say, oh, no, we should suppress these votes that but only for this election. And so
But
that
you're right,
could
though.
help parents.
That's what
it's not
happens.
a perfect solution, but it can help parents have their voice be a larger share of the total votes than if it was just special interest. So those are some things. There's a Given Name Act as well that the Heritage Foundation has proposed as well. Don't, if make sure the families again are in those conversations. Don't use a different name than what the given name of the child. And so these are things that can improve the system. It's a blueprint for different policies that could be used in your state, but also a blueprint for how you could expand education freedom from states like Arizona into your home state, and spread education freedom to the rest of America. Like Doug Ducey, your governor, said on the inside cover in his endorsement, he said, Corey DeAngelis helped us in Arizona become the first state to achieve Milton Friedman's vision of universal school choice. This book lays out the blueprint to bringing education freedom to the rest of America. And if you want to listen to Michael Malice, if you know him, he was actually he was the officiant at my wedding with Miranda that happened earlier last year. So he's a great officiant. He's a great podcaster. Follow him, Michael Malice. He's
great. Yeah, Michael's
but he says government schools are literal prisons for children, and Corey DeAngelis explains how to set the kids free. He also famously said, socialists regard your property as their property, but even more nefariously regards your children as their property. Some wise words from Michael Malice, and I'm glad he endorsed the book. I'm glad he officiated the wedding. And we have a new child on the way.
Yeah, congratulations.
Baby Angelina is expected in August. So I'm joining the parent revolution on the front lines with all of you. I hope you can read the book. And if you really want, you can order it to send to Randi Weingarten yourself, or they have a lot of union members. There are about 3 million members in the union in the NEA. They've been bleeding members lately because of their ridiculous political stances, but they have 3 million members in the NEA. They probably need me to hold of the parent revolution. Now, yes, they might burn it. They might cry about it. They might need a safe space when they open the pages. Hopefully they don't close it too soon like they closed the schools, and they'll learn something. But you can look up the address of the NEA. Mine just arrived to their door today. So you can send them, order one for yourself, order one for your family, but also order one for a union member. And maybe they'll change their tune. If they don't, however, if they don't change their tune, we're going to continue winning, and we're going to continue winning no matter what. But particularly if they keep stepping in it over and over again, I think they will, because they've been so drunk on power for so long. They felt like they can get away with anything. So even though they're losing on the issue of school choice, I think they're such control freaks that, and they see this as really the hill they're willing to die on, because they want so badly to be able to control the minds of other people's children. It's bad enough that they have a monopoly on the funding, but I think they care even more about controlling the future of this country. They want it to move in a more socialist direction, and they know they don't even have to have kids of their own anymore. They can just use the school system run by the government, influenced by the union, to direct the future of our country in a more socialist direction. The way that we can fight back, however, is to expand the parent revolution, to mobilize. We have more power in numbers than them. We care about our kids more than them. And so we should win this war that they waged on our kids for far too long. And hopefully you can go into battle with my new book, The Parent Revolution. Order a copy today. And you can get it anywhere. You can get it on Amazon, Walmart, Target. You may not like Target for whatever reason, but Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you want to choose. Look, I support school choice. I support bookseller choice too. So whatever outlet you want to use, buy the book, get it for a union member, and make them turn into the meme that we've all seen before, where the person's crying about what they just saw.
Get one for a friend, get one for yourself, and one for a union member. That'd be good. Buy 3. All right. Well, I know you only have a couple minutes left. Let's just, if you could close us out, what events do you have coming up? You're going to visit a few states and do a
Yeah.
little
I
tour.
mean, when I said, Matthew, that we're winning so much, I'm almost getting tired of winning, I wasn't kidding in a way, in that I'm having to travel a lot. So, and I'm trying to push these in before the baby comes, obviously, well enough in advance before the baby comes. But I'll just give you a couple, the big ones. So, in launch week on May 15th, when the video comes out, the first launch event is at the Heritage Foundation. You will be there. It's at 11 a.m. at the Heritage Foundation. Anybody can sign up. It's for free. There will be books there provided by sponsors, Educational Freedom Institute, Heritage, and others. And I'll be there signing books for everybody. So make sure you're there. This is going to be a big, fun event. Hopefully we get some protesters too. The unions are in DC as well. They got a copy of the book. Maybe they can cry about it and then rip out the pages in front of the Heritage Foundation if they'd like. They should read and figure it out. If they don't want to be the book banners that they're accusing us of being. But that's the first main event, May 15th, Heritage Foundation. That night, the Independent Women's Forum is also sponsoring kind of an event with a book signing. There will be books there that are sponsored. I'll be signing those. It's at 6 p.m. at the Capitol Club, the Capitol Hill Club in Washington, D.C., and that's 6 p.m. Eastern in DC, Independent Women's Forum. We'll have a panel discussion about where we're at in the movement. And I think I might be getting an award.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know if I should.
I'll give it to Randy Weingarten because she's the true hero. Have you seen the Norm Macdonald skit, The True Heroes? Everybody should go watch it. Real heroes. They fought to keep our schools closed as long as possible. Oh, they're so essential. They're true heroes. But in fact, they overplayed their hand, especially with Randy Weingarten. She's the school choice MVP. She deserves the trophy, not me. I might have to walk it over to her offices that night or the next day. We'll make
at least take a picture of you with it, with the AFT in the background. That'd be cool.
Yep. And then I'll be in Boston that Friday for Reason Weekend. That's for major donors at Reason. I will be doing a book signing there as well. Reason Weekend at the Four Seasons in Boston. The next week, May 21st, I will be doing an event in Lansing, in Michigan, hosted by Mackinac Center for Public Policy. That will be at, I believe, 11:30 a.m. local time in Lansing, Michigan on May 21st. May 22nd, I'm going to the Parent Revolution book tour where it all started in Milwaukee, right outside of Milwaukee at the Ingleside Hotel. That starts at 5:30 Central, a book launch event hosted by the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. The modern school voucher kind of movement started in 1990 with their private school choice program that's been wildly successful in Milwaukee. So that's a very fitting place to go check it out. And then I'll also be in Texas, in Austin, the following week, May 30th at Texas Public Policy Foundation. That'll be at 11 a.m., May 30th, with a parent empowerment event. There will also be another speaker, Mark Teixeira. He is a former MLB star, former Texas Ranger, and he will be doing autographs as well. He'll be promoting. He's a big supporter of school choice as well, for people who don't know. And so we have a hard hitter there as well at the event to help promote my book, and I'm thankful that he's going to be there. That's May 30th. And then I'll finish on this one. There's much more events that I'll list online. But the next day, I'll be flying to you, Matthew, in Phoenix. And there will be an event hosted by the Goldwater Institute and also co-hosted with Educational Freedom Institute. It'll be at the physical location of the Goldwater Institute at 6:30 Central Time. So that's 4:30 local time. It'll be a couple of hours book signing. Books will be provided. And I'm trying to get a special guest speaker there besides me as well. More to come on that. But
hey,
those are some of the events coming up.
That's a great string of events. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. See you going around the country and sharing this with a lot of people. Quick FYI on the Goldwater Institute, a neighbor to the back of their building and just over one lot is the Arizona Education Association, the local state affiliate for the NEA. So
we'll have to give them a signed book,
right,
and tell them thank you for telling your members to write fake obituaries. Yes,
and carry around tombstones.
Yeah, I mean, in Arizona, they were circulating fake obituaries and epitaphs and writing instructions of how this is how you should write it, and they had examples to send to Governor Ducey to say, to imply that you're trying to kill us for making us to go back to work, as if no one else was going back. Everybody else was going back to work. The private schools went back to work. The private daycares and businesses went back to work. It was insane that the so-called essential workers, the heroes, were the last people to go back. The schools, Anthony Fauci, a lot of people hated Anthony Fauci, but even he was saying that the schools should have been the first things to open and the last things to close. So you had bars open, but schools couldn't be open.
Right.
You had daycares open, but the schools couldn't be open because COVID knew if you were learning something, it would get you. But if you weren't, if you were just a daycare and you're just sitting there, COVID was going to give you a pass and say, we're not going to get it. It was just so much hypocrisy nonstop. And this really just blew the door wide open for universal school choice in Arizona. I'm glad it happened there. And maybe we'll give them a book and congratulate them on not understanding how to do math with their petition gathering effort, where they tried to refer school choice to the ballot to try to get another bite at the apple of blocking it after it already passed. And families showed up to their signature gathering locations and said, look, to the voters, said, hey, these are the facts. School choice benefits my kid. It benefits the public schools. It's a win-win. And the union-backed groups, Save Our Schools Arizona, they lied. They said they had like 50,000 more signatures than they actually had. That was able to trigger the postponement of implementing the program. I think that's why they did it, because they wanted to keep kids trapped in their schools after the school year started as long as possible. They wanted more money. And so they were willing, it appears, to lie, because if they were off by 1,000 or 2,000, maybe you could say, it was an honest mistake.
Right.
They were off by 50,000. I think from a percentage term, it was like a 60% difference. It was not in the margin of error.
Yeah.
And so it's either they lied. There are only two explanations. They either lied, or they, because, and the kind of the incentive for them to do so would be to delay the start, to try to keep as much kids and funding there in their schools as possible, or they were really bad at math. They're doing Common Core math or something. And that argument, look, I don't want those kids, the kids learning from those people either. If they can't figure out math to where they're so bad that they're off by 50,000, they can't count. So either way, it's an argument inadvertently for school choice. They do this all the time.
Crazy. Well, hey, this has been great. Thanks for jumping on, Corey. Congratulations on your book. It's an exciting time, and there's already, just based on the number of events that you mentioned here and the I'm sure many more that will come, you're going to be a busy guy. You're already busy, and you just added a lot to your plate, but it's good. It's all good stuff, and we appreciate everything you do for the children of America and for the moms and dads, that want this for their kids. So this will be a nice resource for parents to read up on and to learn more about how they can help in their area to expand school choice and educational freedom across the country. So thanks again, Corey. Appreciate you coming on.
Yep. Thank you, Matthew. And I'll conclude real quick. Take Ted Cruz's advice. Ruin Randy Weingarten's day by reading this book. Thanks, Matthew. I'm glad that we were able to do this. We took a full hour, and maybe we start doing some more of these and get some exciting guests to talk about their books too.
Yeah, we should. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day and take care.